Hello YouTubers. I'm gonna do a new-ish project. Starting right now. Well, I'm gonna do another audiobook. This time it's called Awful Auntie. I've had a look. Listening to the audiobook for free on here on YouTube, and it's near impossible to find. So I'm gonna do my own. So this is the front cover. Basically, you're gonna follow along with me as I read. That's just the reviews, so skip that. Oh, cool pictures. I'm only going to do one chapter today. For Maya, Elsie, and Mitch. The thank yous. I love that he does the thank yous. Thank you. I would like to thank the following people: Charlie Redmayne, the big boss at HarperCollins, and Jenny Mucon, who is the head of children's books there, Ruth Oldtimes, my brilliant editor, the great Tony Ross, who has once again brought the story alive with the most magical illustrations, Kate Clark, the cover designer, Albert Grant, who designed the inside of the book, Geraldine Strout and Sam White, who are in charge of publicity, Paul Stevens, my literary agent at Independent, Tanya Bennett-Rupper, who produces the audio versions of my book. Finally, of course, a huge thank you to Mrs. Barbara Stout, who writes all my books for me. I do hope you enjoy this one. I haven't read it myself, so I have absolutely no clue as to what it's about. David Williams. This is Stocksley Hall, where our story takes place. Here is the interior of Saxby Hall. This is a map of the house and grounds. Then we have the prologue. I know you can see it, so that's why I've got to do it this way. Prologue. Do I have an awful auntie? One that never allows you to stay up to watch your favourite television programme? Or an aunt who makes you eat up every last spoonful of her revolving rhubarb crumble, even though she knows you hate rhubarb? Maybe your aunt gives her pet poodle a big slobbering wet kiss, and then immediately gives you a big slobbering wet kiss too. Or does your aunt scoff all the most delicious chocolates in the box, leaving you with just the dreaded black cherry liqueur? Perhaps your aunt demands you wear that horrendous itchy jumper she knitted for you at Christmas, the one which reads "I love my auntie" in huge paper letters on the front. However awful your auntie might be, she'll never be the same league of awfulness as Aunt Alberta. Aunt Alberta is the most awful aunt who ever lived. Would you like to meet her? Just make sure this is still recording. Yeah. Ah. That's Aunt Roberta. If you can see. Yeah. Yes, I thought you would. Here she is in all her awfulness. Are you sitting comfortably? Then I will begin. Like I said, this is only going to be the first chapter. I'm going to have to break the bind. meet the other characters in the story. You have the young lady Stella Saxby. This is Soot. He is a chimney sweep. Wager is a great Bavarian mountain owl. Gibbon is the ancient butler of Saxby Hall. Detective Stratus is a policeman. Chapter 1. Frozen. Now I can actually close the phone. It was a blur. At first there were only colours, then lines. Slowly though, the haze of Stella's gaze, the room eventually took shape. The little girl realized she was lying in her own bed. Her bedroom was just one of the countless in this vast country house. To her right side stood her wardrobe. On her left sat a tiny dressing table, framed by a tall window. Stella knew her bedroom as well as she knew her this is difficult for a minute. Own face. Saxby Hall had always been her home, but somehow at this moment everything seemed strange. Outside there was not a sound. The house had never been this quiet before. All was silent. From her bed, Stella turned her head to look out of the window. All was white. Thick snow had fallen. It had covered everything within its sight. The long sloping lawn, the huge deep lake, and the empty fields beyond the estate. It's really difficult to do. Icicles hung from the branches of trees. Everything was frozen. The sun was nowhere to be seen. The sky was as pale as clay. It seemed to be not quite right, not quite day. Was it early morning or late evening? The little girl had no idea. Stella felt as if she had been asleep forever. Was it days, months, years? Her mouth was dry as a desert. Her body felt as heavy as stone, as still as a statue. I had someone to stand this up on. Oh, much better. For a moment, the little girl thought she might still be asleep and dreaming. Dreaming she was awake in her bedroom. Stella had experienced that dream before, and it was frightening because, try as she might, she wouldn't move, couldn't move. Was this the same nightmare again, or something more sinister? To test whether she was asleep and dreaming, the girl thought she would try to move, stirring at the far end of her body. First she tried to wiggle her little toe. If she was awake and she thought about wiggling her toe, it would just wiggle. But try as she might, it wouldn't waggle or wiggle, or even woggle. One by one, she tried to move each toe in her foot, and then each toe on her right. One by one, they all point blank, refused to do anything. Feeling increasingly panicked, she tried to circle her ankles, before attempting to stretch her legs, then to bend her knees, and finally she concentrated as hard as she could on lifting her arms. All were impossible. It was as if she had been buried in sand from the neck down. Behind her bedroom door, Stella heard a sound. The house dated back centuries, had been passed through many generations of the Saxby family. It was so old that everything creaked, and so fast that every noise echoed down the endless labyrinth of corridors. Sometimes the young Stella believed that the house was haunted, that a ghost stalked Saxby Hall in the dead of night. When she went to bed, the little girl was convinced she could hear someone or something moving about behind her. Sometimes she could even hear a noise calling on her. Terrified, she would dash into her mother and father's room and climb into bed with them. Her mother and father would hold Stella tight and tell her she was not to worry her pretty little head. All those strange noises were just the clatter of pipes and the creaking of floorboards. Stella was not so sure. Her eyes darted over to the huge oak panelled door of her bedroom. At vast height, there was a keyhole, though she never locked the door and didn't even know where the key was. Most likely it had been lost 100 years ago by some great-great-great-grandparent. One of those Saxby lords or ladies whose paintings were hung every few paces along the corridors, captured forever unsmiling in oils. The key flickered light into dark. The little girl thought she saw the white of an eyeball staring at her through the hole, before quickly disappearing out of view. "Mama, is that you?" she cried out, hearing her own voice out loud. Stella knew this was no dream. On the other side of the door, an eerie silence lingered. Stella plucked up the courage to speak again. "Who is it?" she pleaded. "Please?" The floorboards creaked outside. Someone or something had been spying on her through the keyhole. The handle turned, and slowly the door was pushed open. The bedroom was dark, but the hallway was light. So at first, all the girl could see was a silhouette. It was the outline of someone as wide as they was tall. Even though they were extremely wide, they still weren't particularly tall. The figure was wearing a tailored jacket and plus fours, those long, billowy shorts that golfers sometimes wear. A deer stalker hat adorned the figure's head, with the ear flaps from flat way down. Jutting out from their mouth was a long, thick pipe. Some plumes of stickily sweet tobacco smoke clouded the room. On one hand, there was a thick leather glove. Perched on the glove was the unmistakable outline of an owl. Stella knew instantly who this person was. It was her awful Auntie Alberta. "Well, you have finally woken up, child," says Aunt Alberta. The woman's voice was rich and deep, like a boozy cake. She stepped out of the doorway and into her niece's bedroom, her large brown steel toe-capped boots clumping on the floorboards. Now, in the half-light, Stella could make out the heavy tweed of her suit and the long, sharp talons of that zoomed in. That zoomed in. That zoomed in. That zoomed in.